I think the video tutorial was very useful. Um, I my impression from student comments is that um, this was new to most students, and they did have questions as to how this would work and it how this would all happen. So the tutorial, I think, was very good to explain to them very precisely what would happen and what they would have to do in order to take the exam. Um, as far as changes, what I in this first offering, my in they were these exams were new to me. This was a completely new process. So at this point, my main concern was to get everyone started and make just make sure that the webcam and the screen sharing worked as well as possible, and just start the exam. Um, so my process as far as exactly what I do once I visit the breakout rooms and get the exam started was limited to simply verifying that their camera and their screen was working. What I would add to this is maybe a more defined routine that would maybe ask students to give expectations for students as to the environment they should be in when they take the exam, expectations as to behavior during the exam as well. For example, not talking during the exam, and be in an environment where no one is present, and similar things. So I would, in the next offering, I would become more specific as to a number of things. At the same time, using Adobe Connect, using what I used, I found that a reasonable number was about 10 to 12 students. My class, this section had 35 active students, so I did offer, in the midterm, I offered 2 time options, and it happened that one of the times I was giving the students the option to decide what time they would choose, and in one of the times the group was large. It was more than 20 students, and I could proctor the exam fairly well, but it was a group too large. The setup time was too long, a little too long, and the monitoring process during the exam wasn't as effective because the group was just too large. So I found that 10 to 12, based on I sort of observed how long I would take to prepare each student before the exam, and it would take about 3 minutes per student. So with a group of more than 20 students, we're talking about an hour of simply setting up students, which is too long. So 10 to 12 would have to be a maximum for one person. In this particular offering, there was no specific requirement for all students to have a webcam and a microphone. The reason for this is that because of the process used in preparing for the course, the actual exam process wasn't fully settled until the beginning of the class. So if I were to offer it again, I would require in the course requirements that all students have a webcam and a microphone. I guess I would make sure that the synchronous approach with a real-time monitoring process is appropriate for the class, because it does require small groups. So if you have a very large section, it requires offering different times for the exam. So unless this approach is really appropriate for the material, I would probably at least consider giving exams that may not be monitored in real time. Apart from that, I think the idea of a systematic routine that is determined ahead of time, that you can use for every student, and while you're setting them up for the exam, is a good one. It certainly helped me, because I had a little routine that I would follow, and it helped me stay focused and also be efficient in preparing students to start the exam. Small groups are recommended, as we mentioned before, unless, and I didn't experiment with this, but unless there would be more than one person monitoring or preparing students.